Hello, and welcome to the official Hacks podcast from Max and Pineapple Street Studios. I'm Paul W. Downs, creator, showrunner, executive producer, writer, director, and actor on Hacks. I play Jimmy Lusac Jr., the intrepid manager of Deborah and Ava. Here with me, as always, are my incredible fellow showrunners, Jen Statsky.
Hello.
And Lucia Aniello.
This is the sound of my voice.
And today we are very excited because our guest is one of our favorite people, Mark Indelicato, who plays Damien, Deborah's long-standing and long-suffering assistant.
This is big, you guys.
This is big.
This is a big deal.
Toot toot.
We had an air horn sound effect, but we can't get the button.
Yeah,
to work.
where's the soundboard?
Oh, we should get a soundboard.
We really should.
That would
Right?
be really
Of like
fun.
Deborah and Ava sayings.
Yeah.
I have been saying things in the cadence of our characters
Actually,
lately.
Deborah screaming Damien would be a great.
Oh, that's a great way.
sound.
In fact, maybe we try and edit that in. Let's see. Ready? And today we have one of our favorite people, the incredible actor Mark Indelicato, who plays Damien. Okay, that was Jean Smart as Deborah Vance screaming Damien.
Scares me still.
Today we're going to be talking about episode 2 of season 3, Better Late. It was written by Andrew Law and directed by the one and only Lucia Aniello. But before we jump in, dear listener, please make sure you've watched episode 2, unless you have a kink for spoilers, because you're going to get some today. So you've been warned. Here we go. Ready, set, pew, pew, pew. That was our air horn again.
That's the show I almost hosted, Jimmy. After my special, everybody knows how badly I wanted that. So if I go on the show and I don't kill, it's like, well, of course she's not hosting. She's not even a good guest.
So let's tell you a little bit about episode 2, Better Late.
Deborah is finally going to go be a guest on The Late Show.
All you need to do is tell a good story, and I bet you have binders full of amazing stories to tell.
But unfortunately, the host gets sick
Danny's got salmonella from the egg toss he did with Cristiana Amanpour yesterday.
and it's about to be canceled. It's about to be a rerun. And then Jimmy says, hold on.
What if Deborah guest hosts?
And then she
And-
does and it rocks.
She does, and it rocks.
As you might know, Danny is out with a health issue, and out of respect for his privacy, I can't say much more than that. But should you experience an erection lasting longer than 6 hours, this is a medical emergency, and you should consult a doctor.
And at the end, we find out Danny Collins, beloved Late Show host, is leaving. And Deborah says, this could be it. This could be my shot.
You said you have a hiatus coming up from your show, right? How long is it?
3 months.
Do you have any plans?
We knew when we pitched the show that the white whale for Deborah Vance was going to be this late night show. But we didn't know in season 3 that it would happen so early that she would discover the opening, which is the chair is going to be empty.
Yes.
And they're going to look for a new host. We discovered that in the writer's room.
Yes.
Because we talked a little bit about that maybe happening later in season.
Right. There was a lot of discussion of when will this come up? Like, is it more of a end of season thing? And then I think we learned pretty quickly, especially in writing it, like, oh, it's really good to give her this goal and this challenge right at the outset of the season because it really does like shape the rest of the season.
And it also helps justify why Ava comes back to Deborah.
Right,
With a
right.
goal, such a big goal. Like she would need her for
only
it.
her
Otherwise-
biggest challenge would Deborah call Ava and say, can you come back for this?
I was so curious, of just being like, how do they come back together? In what way? Because it obviously could never be in the same way that they were together and intertwined before. Like the dynamic had to obviously inevitably shift. And so I was also quite surprised from the jump that this early on in the season that the late night kind of opportunity did present itself. Reading these kind of as they were coming in, being like, and where do we go from here? Y'all just really continue to surprise me. Let's just be for real.
Now, I have a
That's
question
good.
for you, Mark. When you get a script, do you have a routine? Are you taking a shower, pouring a hot cup of tea, sitting down, getting your cozy chair and busting open the PDF? Or you're just like, no, I'm looking at it on my phone in my car, looking to see Damien lines, and then I'll read the rest later.
It's somewhere in between.
Okay.
I would say it's somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
I am an extremely nervous individual. So when I get a script, I'm already anxiety ridden. You know what I mean? I get the first draft of the script or something that you know is being sent to me, and I'm just like, whew, all right, here we go. It's an actor prepares, which, by the way, as you guys know, is so not the vibe when I actually show up to
That's the
work.
thing. I was going to say, you do not present anxiety forward.
No, you're very
That's
chill.
not,
No,
when
because
you
I
show
don't
up.
actually prepare. Like that's I fashion myself as like doing all of this work.
It
Like,
sounds like you prepare to prepare, but never actually prepare.
Wow.
Statsky, you said it perfectly.
You know your lines. You always
Well, but
Yeah.
you know what? What I will say is that, like, even if I was to be completely and utterly prepared, y'all are changing stuff on a dime anyway.
Sometimes.
We
It's-
do.
You know what? I think that if I prepared too much, it would not allow me to be able to be as malleable if like there are line changes or if you guys want to add something, which does it, it happens it happens more often than not that it's just
Yeah.
like, why don't you try this here? And if I was too kind of concrete prepared on like what those beats were, what was Damien doing, that it wouldn't be as free flowing for me to kind of like improvise or be malleable, like if there was something else presented,
Yeah, so like it depends. I guess it depends on the scene or the day or whatever, the time we have to play.
Right.
It depends on, like the mood in the room, like I feel like the late night montage was very much one of the bigger moments of just like where it was, you guys were just like kind of throwing stuff in and were just like, go in here and like yell at her. And
And that you felt very comfortable doing.
I
And with
leaned
the
in
tassel scene.
surprisingly.
The tassel scene is a major, huge hit for us personally. We love the tassel
Well, yeah,
scene.
let's talk about it.
Sweetheart, to the right, you see it hanging there? The pink. Perfect.
Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Good. Sorry, I think you gotta make that bigger. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, her text font is like double the size of that.
I have probably not laughed on set harder than when we shot Mark doing the prep for the late night guesting. It was so funny. And the thing is, we shot at Television City, which is an actual studio lot.
Yes.
Very cool place. It's where they film The Price is Right. It's where the Carol Burnett show was filmed. It's where I think The Bold and the Beautiful and maybe Young and the Restless. We are in this like very storied place. There's a lot of TV history. And they have crazy cool, like the location was amazing because they had this, what was it, drapery room?
It was drapery room.
They call it the drapery
We
room.
happened to walk by it and we were like, excuse me, this is too insane to not shoot in.
Because all it is like textiles, fabrics, and tassels. It's just a
Yes.
room of tassels, which is very Deborah Vance.
Yes.
All these places the late night shows shoot, like I remember this from 30 Rock. 30 Rock, the prop room, there's like, it's this massive like warehouse of props from like decades and decades of TV, and Television City had a similar vibe. It's like all these artifacts of like TV history. It was so
And
cool.
it's rare that you get like an opportunity to not have to like make that world.
Exactly.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
yes.
Like there was something that felt very like hallowed halls of like, it
Exactly.
felt very much like we were actually at late night. Definitely just adds this another layer of like, oh, we're really here. You know what I mean? Like you didn't have to
Totally.
make that world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we can't
We
obviously.
couldn't afford that many tassels.
And no TV show can do everything on location, but we do try and do exactly that, which is go to a place and make it feel even more real and lived in, not only for the actors, but for the
I mean,
audience
even
as
just
well.
like in part of the montage, like one of the things that I loved is like it's so quick, but it's like Ava running down the hallway with all of those seamlesses, like,
Yeah.
where it's just like that's just such a cool,
cool,
like
yeah.
aesthetic kind of view, like of just like BTS backstage moments, you
And
know?
a lot of a lot of that montage was from just being like, oh, this is a cool area. This is a cool area. Let's like add this into the script.
Yeah.
We had originally written it to be far more scenic and to be like seeing it in more real time. But I think that we were finding as we were shooting it that like it was feeling a little slow. We were like, it needs to feel exciting. Like her dream is coming true if only for a night. And so I think we were like feeling like we needed more pieces, whether it's for the montage or during the scene or whatever. So we were, I think, I don't want to use the word scrambling. I don't even know if I'd use improvising. We were operating at the top of our intelligence and trying to add moments while we were shooting that we could integrate to make it feel in the edit faster and more exciting. And Rob Pollia, who edited this episode, did a really amazing job of continually pacing it up and making it feel exciting and cutting it to music. And then, it finally got to the place where it got to, which I do think makes it feel like the show went really well and it was fun.
And and when you see Mark in that tassel room,
Oh my
we just
gosh.
let him go wild.
We should say that there is that moment in the episode where Mark says,
And do you have any copper-colored lob mics? If not, I'm going to need a can of spray paint.
That is ripped from the headlines.
Yes.
You should say that.
Yeah.
And that is, I believe,
Barbara Streisand.
that's right on
Oprah.
Oprah.
I believe it was that she was on Oprah and she wanted a white mic, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they did not have a white mic available to her. And so someone spray painted the mic white.
I'm guessing someone in Barbara's team, even though it would most likely be someone that worked for Oprah Winfrey.
It
but
was probably Barbara herself.
Can you imagine? She's like, I got spray paint.
Like,
Yeah.
somebody get me
With the
a
can?
white microphone now.
I need a can of spray paint. I need a hair blow dryer to make it dry fast.
Yeah.
Barbara.
Barbara, how's Jimmy?
But
You have to come back down to the basement sometime. I want more of that popcorn. That's a deep cut.
I don't think it is.
Barbara
I don't know if
Streisand
people
has a
know.
mall underneath her house, and there's
That
a
wasn't a
popcorn.
deep cut.
Babe, we signed an NDA.
There's a
we signed
popcorn
an NDA.
store.
Who doesn't know that?
Yeah, no one listening to the Hacks podcast doesn't know about Barbara
Yeah, I was
Streisand's
gonna
mall.
say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, one of my favorite scenes in the episode is you, Mark, going through the Rolodex of late night stories, because that's the kind of thing that we feel like Deborah would have.
God damn it. Martha Stewart is so lucky she went to jail. I mean, that shit's evergreen.
Why don't you tell a more recent story? You can talk about your new horsehair bed from Austria, remember? When we thought it wouldn't fit through the window, but then it did.
Yeah, very relatable.
And I am going to give a little Easter egg, which is that the very last shot of that scene was a reshoot.
That's right.
So that moment where she says, you know what, I'm going to make a new story was actually shot, I don't know, 9 months later or something.
We always knew she was going to make a story for late night because all of hers were slightly out of date. But we just wanted to set it up really clearly for that smash cut to Carrot Top's door. And now we should talk about
That.
Carrot Top.
Oh, Carrot Top.
Mr. Top.
No one has ever discussed anything with me about any...
Please put whatever belongings will fit into this bag.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Demolition will begin in 20 minutes.
20 minutes? This is a joke.
Mr. Top, we sent several notices.
You didn't send jack shit, and I don't think you have the right fucking house. See if you have the right fucking house on there.
1929 Chickasaw Way.
God damn it!
The scene with Carrot... So Carrot Top is obviously a staple of Las Vegas, and he's like an icon there and has had a long-running show and is very kindly been a supporter of Hacks.
Yes.
As a Vegas legend, we appreciate him supporting the show. And yeah, we thought, because he had also been in the history of Hacks, he dated DJ and then ghosted her. He'd kind of be the perfect person for Deborah to prank, to play a little prank on for her to get some material for late night.
And he was so funny.
He was so
really
funny.
good.
Okay, I got to say,
So funny. Like,
he is an amazing actor. He's
Really
a great
good.
actor.
He's incredibly grounded.
it was
in the
so
scene.
Yeah.
good.
Even though we're like
He's really
screaming,
good.
somehow you were, you know what? It's one of the only times you're really on somebody else's side other than Deborah's.
Yeah.
It's
And
also hard to like play yourself, by the way.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
tell me
Like,
about
to
it.
be like a caricature of yourself.
Yes.
Like that's
I'm doing it every
work.
day. It's work. It's work.
Come on.
Yeah, he was so good, and it made it so like real to the Vegas world. Like obviously her getting a bulldozer, a little bobcat, and playing this kind of prank is a little bit broad, but I don't know. There was something about having Carrot Top in the show that you were like, someone like Deborah would do this to someone like, to another comedian, to a prop comic. She would do that,
Totally. And
Yeah.
by the way, her having a little bobcat doesn't seem too broad.
Not at all.
not for the bit.
It's very Martha Stewart.
Yeah, not for the bit.
And there's
Come
a little
on.
Martha Stewart in Deborah Vance.
Oh,
For sure,
absolutely.
for sure.
Maybe there's a lot.
Well,
Let's talk about what happens behind the scenes in the writer's room when Deborah steps out to guest host for the night.
Well, we don't have much time, so there's no such thing as a bad idea. Let's hear 'em.
John?
So maybe an in-studio sketch where you try not to set your desk on fire, but can't.
Uh-huh.
Because of the whole, burning down the house thing.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Anything else?
What about a desk piece where you go through celebrities and guess their favorite sex position? Like Daniel Radcliffe's could be Dobby style.
What?
Like doggy style. But Dobby?
I think it felt as frenetic as it must be when that happens, because that does happen. I mean, it happened with Kimmel, right? John Mulaney was
Yeah,
a guest
there
host,
are
and Nick Kroll
moments
guest
when
hosted.
I worked on. I guess
I was about to say,
I should
dear
reveal
listener,
myself
yes.
and my
Mask off.
my history, mask off. That I was my first job. Well, not my first job. My first writing job, full-time writing job, was to be a writer on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. But my first,
What was your first job?
my first job? I was a swim instructor, which is interesting because I can't swim,
yes, right.
and that is a troublesome fact about me.
Tell them what you told the kids.
I took the job and they never said, "Can you swim?" But unbeknownst to me, part of being the counselor was every session, 4 sessions a summer, you would get assigned a group. So session 1, I get the guppies. hanging onto the wall, kicking. No problem. I got this. Session 2, the sharks.
Oof.
We're learning to dive. That's really tough for me, a person who can't swim.
That's certainly
So
never dived.
what I told the kids is, they said, "Can you show us how to dive?" And I said, no one ever learned anything by having someone show them. Which is famously how you learn.
Yeah.
But that's also giving like when like your grandpa throws you into the pool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was giving like J.K. Simmons and Whiplash. Like I was trying to be like
Emotional
tough
abuse.
diving
Yeah.
instructor. There was a lifeguard there. They were safe. They were
Okay,
never in
okay.
danger. They were just in danger of learning maybe not how to dive as well as they possibly
They're not going to the
could.
Well, I can say for certain,
Yeah.
Jen, that no one is going to ask you how to teach their kids how to swim.
No.
So I
No.
think we're in the
No,
clear.
but that was my first job. But yes, I worked at late night. And yeah, I think this episode does a very good job of depicting what the pre-show late night vibe is. Like what Ava does with the cue cards, like I used to have to go down to the floor and when it was basically one monologue joke writer would have to go down and watch the monologue being written on cue cards. And so I would have to do that.
Oh, wait, I have a question actually about the cue card thing. When Ava says her text font is big, was that like an alt or was that like written?
It was
or
scripted.
It was
It was
scripted?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Because it was
scripted.
just so, that was, it just reminded me, it was so funny.
And it was a slight callback to a scene that you were in last year in the green room when DJ's texting and
Oh, yeah,
Ava
and
can
she
read it and she's
yeah.
like, I can read your font sizes. I don't even know what the
Top
joke
row
was.
of an eye exam.
There we go. There's the joke.
There it is.
Yeah.
Also, I just wanted to hop back to the montage bit for late night because we were talking about how, you know, we're seeing the ways in which like the late night show like comes together really quickly and sometimes in a very like frenetic way. But I also think that it was another example of like Team Vance like truly like operating at its highest level, you know, because there's a lot of like funny quirks and whatever to Team Vance in general, right? But when it's really time to work, you know, like it's nice to like remind again like the audience that like this is actually a well-oiled machine when it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I thought that like even in a short kind of montage, it was like a really great representation of like these people ride for her. They want her to be operating at her highest level and therefore they do the same. And so I thought that was also like a really cool just reminder, like as funny and quirky as we all are, it's like we're here to do a job. Like we all have jobs, right?
And we do love the all hands on deck ensemble
Yeah.
scenes, you know, because that is when we pitched the show, it was about this ecosystem of someone like Deborah, the ecosystem around her.
And also this season, I'd say, is a big Team Vance moment.
That's right.
You know, everyone plays their part and has their job and like knows what they need to do. And I think that's one of the interesting things, you know, about Ava coming into that ecosystem in season 1 is that like it does mix things up and change things around. But now it does feel like she's fully integrated into the world, into the posse, and everyone is ready to throw down for their main bitch.
And seemingly indispensable as well.
Yeah.
Like where it's like when she comes in, I think in the first season, it's just kind of like, where do you fit in? This is a weird kind of cog in this machine that's already well oiled. But now without her, it almost seems that like, you know, as we get introduced to like the 2 new writers that Deborah has, like something just doesn't seem right. And so I think that like, I don't know, once you become part of Team Deborah, you can't really get out.
No.
I don't think.
That's right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and it's like, as soon as Ava comes back into the fold, everything starts to seem to go more smoothly. So,
How's this? Danny has salmonella. The good news is no one can directly connect me with the purchase of any toxic chemicals.
What about the good news is we're saving the network money because I only cost 80 cents on the dollar.
That's good. That's good. I like that.
So we should talk a little bit about that opening montage, which, you know, we described as the thaw between Deborah and Ava. They're texting each other. They're doing what I think in real life one would do if they started to reestablish contact.
Reconnect with someone that had been out of their life. Yeah, the seal is broken at the end of episode 301 when Ava texts toilet. And now they're talking again. And yeah, they go into this montage that, like Paul said, we called the thaw because it was them kind of falling back into things together, talking with each other, being other places with other people who perhaps deserve their attention, and they're paying more attention to each other and wanting to text each other and wanting to talk to each other.
In the country.
What time were you born? I want to look at your birth chart to see what houses your planets are in. Puppets are basically like you put your
Don't know, but I can
in,
tell you what
like,
cities my
a
houses
sense
are
or
in.
something that, like,
Vegas,
makes me
Aspen, LA, Jackson Hole, Palm Beach, and if penthouses count, Dubai.
And we should say, ironically, we reference a podcast, which we're now doing. Deborah thanks Ava for not doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah, right.
She's surprised she doesn't have one, and she's very pleased that she doesn't have to listen to it.
I've been approached about doing a podcast. I gotta say, very impressed you don't have one.
I know, right? Thank you so much.
What we're really excited about.
No, thank you.
Oh my God, she's like, no reaction, right? And there's like a whole.
It is awesome that Ava doesn't have a podcast.
It is, because she
That's
is a
really
character who
cool.
might.
And that makes her likable.
That
makes her likable.
That's why you're.
I was gonna say, please don't give her a podcast.
Yeah, no, you're rooting for her because she
rooting for
doesn't
her.
have a podcast.
And before we talk about any more, I just really need to say the scene between Ruby and Ava, where Ruby is working out and Ava brings her a matcha. I was on the phone with Hannah Einbinder this morning because I was like, I just watched the first 2 episodes and I was just like, girl, you are acting. Like, it is so good.
So I was just thinking, maybe we should get some new silverware.
Yeah, sure.
You have 15 seconds. Push.
It's just that I have my silverware and you have your silverware, but I just thought it'd be nice if we had like our silverware.
Yeah, sure. Do silverware.
That scene between Ruby and Ava was truly like just encapsulated who Ava is. Like, I'm just like, shut up. Like, you're so annoying. Like, go away. Like, oh my God. Like, I get it. Like, I know. Like, I know you mean well, but like, just go away. Like, please. Like,
This is why we cast you as Damien.
Yeah, I know.
This is how Damien feels.
Yeah, you're very method.
I was laughing, but I was also just like, oh my God, you're so annoying.
Yeah. She's in love.
She's in love.
It was,
Yeah.
it was
She's
so
in love.
good. And Lorenzo, who plays Ruby, is just so great at it. Like, where, she's just getting worked to the bone.
I know.
Like, Ava's talking about silverware. It's just, that whole scene to me was one of my favorite scenes of the episode, for sure.
Yeah.
It was fun. And that button of she has scoliosis is so funny to
good,
me.
Yeah.
She has scoliosis.
I know.
And Hannah gave a little
Yeah.
crooked
She
walk.
gave a little S curve to
She
that
gave a
spine.
S.
Smiling and
Yeah.
like the just, like, it just,
Yeah.
oh God, it was just
And
so
she,
good.
that's one of the, I was saying that I now speak in our actors' cadence a lot. I'm very loving. I say love you a lot. And I do love you, which is how she says love you at the end.
So
That's
good.
love you.
That's how he says love you now. It's cute.
It's so
So
cute.
good.
Enjoy your matcha. Don't know why she's doing all that. Perfect the way she is. Love you.
Love you.
In this episode, Ava is so excited to go to Iceland with her lover, Ruby, that she is packing very early for this trip. And when doing that, she's looking for a passport and discovers what she thinks is an engagement ring. She is so excited, and Hannah plays it, I think,
So
in such a lovely way. It's so
She plays
sweet.
it so funny, and it's not trying to be discreet in any way. Like, it is
No.
so overtly like,
Yeah.
She's like, yeah.
do you notice something different
is-
about me? Like,
Yeah.
it's so deliberate, and I love that.
And it's also a little bit out of character for Ava, who you think of as a little bit like, tough. That she wouldn't be so dainty about
Yes.
an
Yeah,
engagement ring,
yeah.
but she's so like she's leaning into gender norms in that moment.
or
you
just
know?
even about like the institution of
That's right.
marriage.
Oh, that's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like, that just
Right,
seems
right.
so
Not like her.
antithetical
Yeah.
to Ava's like whole value system.
100%.
And so that, I mean, again, like, that just makes it even funnier, the fact that she's so stoked and just being like,
Yeah.
a true
Yeah.
like blushing bride.
blushing
Like,
bride.
you know?
And if you asked her a
Exactly.
moment before, she'd be like, "Marriage is disgusting."
Right.
And then
Right.
seeing the stone, she's like,
Patriarchal
"Ooh."
structures.
Yeah,
She's
exactly
like,
right.
it would be. She's like, I think I could get Dwell to cover the wedding.
Yeah, yeah.
I know it's not normally what
Yeah.
they do, but I
It's-
think I could.
She's smart enough to know Vogue is not.
Yeah.
That's a
No.
reach. That's
No.
a reach. But Dwell,
Yeah.
Maybe.
She lives on the east side. She's got a cute place.
And
Yeah.
not to
She
like
does.
not to jump forward, but like with the ring of like when we discover
Oof.
in the
Yeah.
episode what the ring is.
From the first time I saw you at
Eva,
Little
Eva,
Dom's.
Stop. Okay, stop. This ring is from the show. This is how Wolf Girl gets her powers. I have it here to help me get into character, and I have to wear it to practice while I'm wielding the flail.
It's equally as disappointing for Ava as it is like just like like actory of Ruby.
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
like I'm just like, oh, you need to wear that ring to get into character,
Yeah.
Wolf Girl. Like, girl, what?
It
Like,
is the ring that gives Wolf Girl her powers.
you
Yeah.
know? And I need to wear it to get into character. I'm just like,
when she's
ugh.
wielding the flail.
Practice wielding the
Boo,
flail.
tomatoes. Like, it's just like, I can't.
And Lorenzo plays that so well of being like earnest and sweet
Yeah.
and lovely, but also earnestly an actor.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like,
Which is just like,
I mean, this episode was very important in setting up the Ava-Ruby relationship and dynamic and wanting it to feel like you really got a sense of their relationship and how much they cared for each other, so that fight scene at the end when Ruby says, we should take some space, you really like feel for Ava and feel what she's losing.
But it's different this time. I'm just gonna be working with her temporarily.
You're not gonna be working with her. You're gonna be working for her. You'll always be working for her.
You're making this such a bigger deal than it needs to be.
You're canceling our plans to go work with someone who was borderline abusive because she might get a job. Look, I know that you respect this person, and I know you're proud of the work you did together, but it was also really hard. And not just when she fired you. The whole time. She slapped you, she sued you, you said she was toxic,
I
Ava.
said that stuff when I was mad at her. I'm so sorry. You just don't get it.
Yeah. I guess I don't get it.
And we wanted to have Ruby give voice to the fact that it has been kind of a fraught relationship. She says she slapped you, she sued you. Like, she reminds the audience, who I think we all want Deborah and Ava to be together, and the audience wants them to be together. So it was good, I think, to have somebody say, well, just so you know, it's not uncomplicated, this relationship.
Right.
sure. Yeah, and you guys have done, like, horrible shit to each other. I mean, like,
Yeah.
things have been said, things have been done. And yeah, I think that you're so right. Like, that you guys reminding the audience that, like, this is a very fraught relationship, and that also, not for nothing, like, all of Ava's relationships are pretty fraught, as well. And Deborah's, you know? So it's like, and that's why they need each other.
And seems like the Ruby one is actually, we see that scene in the beginning when Ava's planning them going to Iceland and going to a glue, and Ruby very easily is like, yeah, I'll work around it. Like, you're coming with me, I'll put you in front of my work. And so we see that their relationship is probably the healthiest relationship Ava's ever had in her life. And then she's so quick and willing to walk away from it.
And that dynamic and that relationship, the notion of, like, Ava inadvertently or deliberately, like, choosing Deborah, like, I think that the kind of Ruby-Ava dynamic is really good at, like, hammering home that, like, she's, like, made her choice already. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And, I have to say that I do side with Ava in terms of having trouble with graphic novel. Being like, wait a minute, the cells, how do you follow the cells?
boxes.
Like, what?
It
it's
is
hard.
really hard to follow.
It can be.
I'm gonna stand
I
up.
knew you didn't read the graphic novel.
I don't know how to follow the fucking boxes.
So at the end of the episode, we have obviously brought Deborah and Ava back together, but it's only in this episode when Deborah discovers her mission, when she becomes a dog with a bone, that Deborah and Ava are now back at it. And she calls her back. So Ava drives back to Las Vegas. And we should say that we actually filmed Ava driving to Las Vegas with one of our camera operators, Charlie Pennian, all the way from LA to Vegas. So it's very real. And when she arrives, she's very happy to see Deborah, but Deborah says, shoes off. And she realizes in that moment the dynamic is reset. Even though she's here to collaborate with Deborah and she's walked away from Ruby in her trip to Iceland and the Gliglo, they're going to have a similar dynamic, at least if it's up to Deborah.
We should talk about the song.
We should talk about the song.
So it's a cover of Steely Dan's Dirty Work by King Princess.
That's
who
right.
I think you know.
That is right. A friend of mine, Michaela, King Princess, friend of mine and Hannah's.
Yes. Absolutely Slade gagged the house down.
She gagged the house down.
The house down. The house down.
And thank you for being friends with her, because your friendship and Hannah's friendship with her, I think, helped make it happen.
Yeah, we had talked about that Steely Dan song, and then when it was in the sequence, we were just feeling like we wanted it to feel a little bit different. We felt like a female vocalist would be a really cool way to cover it. And yeah, when we thought we could get King Princess to do it, we were like, oh my God, let's try. That would be amazing.
Vocalist. What a great artist.
She's
really something
She did
special.
such a great job. And, we knew that the lyrics of the song were so appropriate for the moment. But we also, it's not an unheard, so it's a recognizable track.
Yeah.
People have heard that song. So it was so nice to have a fresh voice on it. and a
I will
fresh
say
take.
too, just in general, just the sound design and like the music that's being used just thus far, like just episodes 1 and 2, is so just quintessentially like Hacks, like opening episode 1 with Evil Woman, and it's so good. It's the queerest show on television. I just know that my friends are just gonna like die at the disco moments and things like that.
Thank you.
Pretty,
a lot
like,
of people
familiar and
contribute to that.
Yes, we all care about music
Yes.
a lot. We all create playlists, but we also have a brilliant music supervisor, Matt Biffa, who finds a lot of music for us. And our editors also bring music to
Tons of
the show.
And everything feels like it works like for the scenes that we're talking about, but like it also is just, it's strange to feel or to see like the ways in which music like legitimately changes the way that you're like your viewing experience. Like it's I only really get to kind of like tap into when I see something that we're doing or that we shot, like the montage scene or something, like something that feels so disjointed when we're doing it, because I'm just like, how are you guys going to cut this pillow thing together? Like, what is that? And to see it all put together with music and everything, it just changes like your viewing experience in such an awesome way.
Now, for your experience of being on the show, like obviously you're in a bunch of the show, you're in scenes, you see a lot of it happening, but then there's a lot of scenes you're not in, and so but you've read it. So are there ever moments where you're like seeing the final cut and you're like, I don't know, like you get to see it like half in, half out, kind of?
I like, I do really feel that I can watch the show as an audience member. Like I don't feel completely ingrained in a way where I can't take a step back and enjoy it from like, like as an actual viewer. And my friends and I talk about this all the time, that it's like, even if like I wasn't on the show, like it's like our favorite show to watch.
Oh, that's so nice.
So it's like, even if I was given like the opportunity or something, like I would never want to watch like dailies or something like that. Like I want to see what the audience is seeing. I don't want, I don't want to like peek behind the curtain as much as I have to, like to do my job, So I do feel that I can actually watch the show as like an audience member in a certain way for sure. And I like love that because, I get to like be like, oh my God, that was, I'm a fan,
That's
I'm a
cool.
fan of the show.
That's so cute.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Well, we're
Mark.
fans of yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
You make the show so much better.
Thanks for having me.
You're so funny and so good. So professional.
Thanks for hiring me.
And I will
Oh my
say, I
God.
want to just give one OG of actually how we actually very, very first met, which
Oh, wow.
is
This is crazy.
Mark came into audition for Broad City to play Jaime.
That is right.
And made it very, very far in the process, but was very, very young.
So I just want to say to Barbara Streisand, Broad City was a show on Comedy Central, whatever. Just because I don't know if she's seen it, but for everyone else, maybe you know.
Yes, and everyone else does know.
You were maybe 18 or something.
I must have just been 18.
Yeah.
I had just
Wow.
moved to New York to go to college. So like
Yeah.
I was like 18, like freshly.
Wow.
Truly, truly.
Well, Mark, we are so glad you're on Hacks with us. Damien is such an indispensable part of the show, not just for Deborah Vance, but for all of us. And that is it for episode 2. Thank you so much for joining us here again. This has been the official Hacks podcast with Lucia Aniello, Jen Statsky, and me, Paul W. Downs. This podcast is a production of Max and Pineapple Street Studios. Our executive producers are Gabrielle Lewis, Barry Finkel, Jay Ann Barry, and our producers are Melissa Slaughter and Ben Goldberg. Darby Maloney as our editor. This episode was mixed by Hannes Brown. Pineapple's head of sound engineering is Raj Makija. Pineapple's senior audio engineers are Marina Pais and Pedro Alvira. This episode was engineered by Javier Cruces. Special thanks to Kenya Reyes, Aaron Kelly, and Michael Gluckstadt for the Max podcast team. You can watch old and new episodes of Hacks on Max. And a big special thank you to Mark Indelicato for joining us today on the show. We love you. And we'll be back next Thursday to talk more about episode 3. See you then.
Bye.
His mom has an incredible body.
Kayla, I don't want to hear that though, please.
What? Perfect ass.